Shalom. This is how Wood. So I got one of my books. I got a couple books in the mail, but I'm gonna start with this one first. This book is called Celtic Lore: The History of the Druids and Their Timeless Traditions by WARD Rutherford. So I'm gonna get right to the important part. It's gonna be like a page or two. To his audience, the Vivicus may well have exemplified one area in which Celtic's prominence was recognized, that of eloquence. After their occupation of Gaul, upper-class Romans sought out its own orators as tutors for their sons. Even in the 4th century, the great Roman orator Quintus Aurelius Symmachus boasts of his Gaulish training, and among those who entered Rome in employment was the Bordox born thither, what is this? Decimus Magnus Ausonius, who before becoming tutor to the son of the emperor Valentinian, taught at the university of his native city. According to a series of poems he wrote, its school of rhetoric had been founded by the Druids from America. Let me read that again for you again. Where was I at? Hold on, let me find it. I'm trying to find the beginning. Quintus Alarius Symmachus boasts of his Gaulish training, meaning that he learned from the Druids, a Roman. And among those who entered Roman employment was the Bordox born. I just had that word in my mouth. Rhetor Decimus Magnus Ausonius, that's his name, who before becoming tutor to his son, to the son of the emperor Valentinian, taught at the university of his native city, according to a series of poems he wrote. Its school of rhetoric had been founded by Druids. So the school that they were going to learning, the Romans were going to learning all this knowledge, was founded by the Druids. It was founded by the Druids from America. Well, it's not saying America, it's saying Amorica. But we know what this is, Amorica is. Amorica is America. So the Druids, they came from America or Brittany. So they came from America or Brittany, the ones that this school that the Romans were learning from. But there are, to my mind, other reasons why the thesis of the Druidic knowledge is not easily to be dismissed. There were the Kudi, which is the Chaldee, the Kudi establishments. Now remember, let's say this, right? Judah and Carrie Mill been reading the same thing. I'm reading it in another book. So that's 3 witnesses right there. Just so y'all know. So for the people that's getting up here calling it devil stuff. Okay, you keep thinking that. Establishments such as that at Scone, with their reputation as Christian heirs of the Druids in the Celtic mythology. I suggested that the high international reputation of Irish scholarship was a kind of indirect legacy from the Druids because of their considerable knowledge. So they would pretty much say the Druids were really, really smart at the time of the conversion. So the time of the conversion is when we lost rulership and they took over rulership. It had been found necessary to send to the country missionaries of the highest intellectual caliber. And who would that be? The Druids. St. Patrick Monastery at Clockmacnoise, Clockmacnoise, as well as other founded on what were believed to be Druidic sacred sites, became famous as a seat of learning throughout Europe. Just like I said, so they were sitting there, and everywhere we had any type of knowledge or any type of sacred sites, they were bringing their minds right over there. But leave it to them. They tell us that they the Druids, we nobody. You know what? You know how I go. All right, where was I at? All right, throughout Europe, the phenomenon of Irish scholarship is one which Arnold Toynbee discusses in the study of history. By the mid-6th century, less than 100 years after St. Patrick's mission, AD 432-61, the Irish Church had not only developed its distinctive features, but had, in many respects, shot ahead of the continental Catholicism. Sorry. He writes Irish missionaries and scholars were warmly welcomed in Britain and on the continent, with the students vying for places in their schools. So they were really trying to get in these schools. Taken overall, the evidence seems to provide at least a prima facie case for believing in a tradition of scholarship among the Druids, which would accord to Caesar's statement that the Druids were held in great honor by the people. Yeah, y'all hear it. Y'all hear it, right? Y'all hear it. You know what the Druids were. They were the Levites. But what did they actually know? Like the shamans, they were regarded as magicians. So too were the Mesopotamians and the Egyptian priesthoods. However, in societies in which only a minority have a basic education, even things like writing and simple arithmetic can be regarded as esoteric knowledge. Goldsmith's village parson was held in awe by his parishioners because he could read and cipher too. Of the Mesopotamians and Egyptians, we also know they were astronomers and mathematicians and physicians, possibly chemists. Though we might also call them astrologers. numerologists, herb doctors, and alchemists. We are similarly well informed on the Brahmins, but though we know of their many similarities with the Druids, as to the actual content of their latter's knowledge, we are once again frustrated by their pathological secrecy. There is another difficulty. Historically, knowledge has tended to move from east to west. That is to say, the knowledge of the Mesopotamians, Persians, and Egyptians was transmitted westward first to the Greeks. Herodotus believed that the Greek religion originated in Egypt. Then about the mid second century BC, as Greece was, hold on, as Greece was falling under Roman domination, it was disseminated throughout the empire. East-west transmissions may have been because it was only in the east that anything deemed worthy of transmission was to be found. On the other hand, it may have come about by sheer historical or geographical chance, for the Romans and even more the Greeks, Egypt or Persia, were simply closer than the remote island off the coast of Gaul, and if anything of significance was happening there, it was likely to go unrecorded. But significant things may have been happening. The cyclic theory of time, that whereby it moves in a sort of huge circle, ultimately returning to the same point, is to be found in Plato's, what is this? Can't really see it. Timaeus and Virgil's fourth epilogue. Toynbee may well be right in declaring that Plato got it from the Mesopotamians, yet the Druids, and there is little doubt their Neolithic predecessors, in Britain, the builders of the megaliths, also had a cyclic theory of time. It could have been that Plato got it from this source, though possibly secondhand. There may even have existed some third unknown source from whom all got it. One feasible medium for its transmission to Britain is by way of the Mycenaean Bronze Age civilizations of the Aegean from about the 6th century BC. Signs of their influence and are demonstrated, among other things, by the scatter of artifacts along the east coast of Ireland and across Britain. The track stretches as far north as the Orkneys, but the greatest concentration is in the southwest seat of the Wessex culture. This compares with an almost total absence of such material over much of continental Europe, except for some on the Britain Peninsula and in the Channel Islands. More significant than objects is the technique used in building the last stage of what was the Wessex culture's most dazzling achievement, Stonehenge. Here, here the tops of all the uprights have been very precisely cut away to leave stone studs into which equally accurately bored holes in the lintels fit, a technique used by the Mycenae. It could have been that the builder of Stonehenge was wealthy enough to import Aegean stone dressers and masons. Wow. The pattern the pattern cut into one of the stones was this tentatively interpreted as representing a Mycenaean dagger has been taken as support. But there is support of another kind. In the labyrinth patterns incised among other places on some of the stones of New Grange in the county of Meath, there are similar to the most famous one of all, that from another Aegean civilization, the early Bronze Age, what is this? Minion labyrinth of Crete. Its image was used on Minion coinage and represented that in which the dangerous Minotaur was constrained. In Wales, where similar mazes were sometimes cut into the turf or outlined in pebbles, they were called Seru Doria. Cities of Troy, Homer's Troy was linked with the Aegean culture provenance as the city invaded by a Greek, actually Mycenaean army under Agamemnon. Sorry, y'all. These words little. I'm getting old and blind. Which was seeking to rescue the abducted Helen and punish the Trojans. This obviously raises the question of whether there can actually have been a connection between the British and Trojans, as Godfrey, I'm sorry, of Mammoth claims. Alright, so you see what they doing. Y'all see exactly what they doing. They not giving the Druids their just due. And you know what? I noticed something too. I really have noticed something. Every time they about to admit that a high society is melanated or negroid, they start giving credit to another race, or they're Greeks or Romans and stuff like that. So I guarantee y'all in a minute, watch they tell and say, oh yeah, well the real Druids were colored and everything. It's gonna be like mainstream. They gonna say yeah they were, but they're not the ones that started all this stuff. They learned it from somebody else, and this is where this is going. This is exactly where this is going. You know, it's funny how you say people come from a whole nother part of a whole nother land place, and they built something and then they left it there. Like, come on, man. It's just crazy how they will not give our people their just due. They won't. They just will not give us our just due at all. You know, they know that the seed of all knowledge comes from Israel. Everything the world knows comes from Israel, but they just want to try to give a nation of people that's not even old the credit. The Greeks aren't old. All these civilizations they talk about are not old. You know, the only one that you could say have some type of age to it is the Egyptians, but we know where Egypt got their knowledge from. But Egypt still did not have the deep knowledge like we did. They didn't have that knowledge the Jews had. So they were taught some things, not everything. You know? It's just crazy. And I got another book. I gotta get a little bit deeper into it. I'm trying to find a link here. This book is called Saxons, Vikings, and Celts. It's the genetic roots of Britain and Ireland. But, you know, while I'm reading this, it's more like the person is talking about themselves or, you know, people of this day more than, you know, the past or whatever. So, I don't know. I got to go a little first, a little deeper into it. Yeah. And I do the same thing Judas say. I crack out, you know. I ask the Father to guide my fingers and my mind. And I crack that book somewhere and I just go right there. You know. That's what I do. Let me see. Let me see something real quick, y'all. Hold on. Alright, like listen, alright, look, I'm gonna read this a little bit to y'all right here, right? It's about the Picts. It says some scholars keen to mark out the Picts as an ancient people relics of an old Stone Age have pointed to the few examples of ambiguous runic carvings of evidence that they spoke a language unrelated to any other Indo-European tongue. The truth is that unless we have more evidence, we may never know, since there are no written Pictish texts, and so very few surviving stone inscriptions. The language of the Picts enters the realms of the unknowable, which all adds to a mystery. And they lying right there because you know all that stuff is right there in that Vatican. The reason why they saying they don't know because they probably ain't letting them get their hands on it, or they just playing the game. You know what I'm saying? It ain't that too much. So you know, other people were before them. Oh, the Greeks. You know that's they line. Unfortunately, there is virtually no guidance from mythology as to the origin of the Picts. It's just funny how they try to call everything a myth. It's just like, even like with the Druids, they try to say the Druids is a myth about them, but you'll have evidence. You know that our people were there, but you still try to try to make it a myth. It's just crazy because they want to I'm gonna tell you why they do that. They do that so they can do the replacement history, so they can stick themselves in there and say they were around. And y'all wasn't around. They didn't get around to the 1700s. These people was not around. They just came along and just started sticking themselves everywhere. All right, what was that? The mythology as to the origin of the Picts. Unlike the rich mythologies of the Irish and Welsh and the English, the mythology of the Picts is almost non-existent. That does not mean it never existed. It surely must have done. It is more a reflection of the absence of writing, or more accurately, the absence of anyone else to write it down until it was too late. In the rest of the Isles, it fell to Christian monks to record, or rather to mold, oral myths. See what I'm saying? Bam, right there. What did I just tell y'all? Did I not say that they put myths so they can put what they want to put? And what did I just tell you? What does it say? In the rest of the Isles, it fell to Christian monks to record, or rather to mold, oral myths. For some reason, this did not happen with the Picts. Yeah, right. Even though they they were among the first people in Britain. So how are they a myth? To have been converted to Christianity. You probably mean brutally converted into Christianity after Columba arrived in Ireland. Yeah. So you just heard what I said, right? So they saying that they converted to Christianity after Columba arrived in Ireland, arrived from Ireland. So that means that Columba, did his thing, like they did over here in the mid 6th century. However, the majority, and it's not talking about Columbus, it's probably somebody else. The majority of the modern scholar now considers that Pictish was closely allied to the strand of Gaelic spoken. Let's see, they're going to say Druids, Celts, let's say Gaelic spoken throughout the rest of Britain and surviving in modern Welsh. If Gaelic was the language of the Picts, it would have been the Gaelic of Britain and not the Gaelic of Ireland. If so, then why is the Scottish Gaelic spoken in the, what is this, Hebrides or whatever, Hebrides, I guess, and now taught in schools in the Highlands and Islands, so closely allied to Irish. Gaelic, and not to the harsher Gaelic of the, what was that? Gaelic of the Welsh. For the answer, we must look to the west and to the peninsula of Kintyre, the long finger that reaches almost as far as Ireland itself. Across the sea from Kintyre in country Antrim, close to the Giant's Causeway, the Irish kings of Del Raiata began to look for new conquests, and the lands visible across the sea were the natural target. In the first centuries of the first millennium AD, the Del Raiata founded 3 colonies on the islands of Islay and Mull on the Kintyre Peninsula. They called their possessions Argyll, hence Argyle. Alright, y'all. I just wanted to show y'all this. I'm gonna fold this page and I'll get back at this tomorrow because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. But I wanted to read that to y'all. I wanted y'all to see what I was, you know what I'm saying? See what I found. And I'm quite sure in this book I'm going to find a whole lot more. But I got a couple more books coming, like 10. A lot of history books. I got one book that's called The Druids in America. And this book is talking about the Druids actually being in the land here and everything. So, listen, when I get these joints, we're going to get into them, alright? But I hope you enjoyed this. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think. Any brothers and sisters find anything or heard anything that lined up with what Big Judah say it, or any, or Brother Judah, if you hear something, you know what I mean, let me know, because I can go a little deep and try to find, more or whatever as far as where you were coming at. But a lot of stuff did line up with what you were saying. Then I have a couple other books that I'm gonna get into too. So I hope y'all enjoyed this, y'all. Shalom.